1998, the League of Lady Conspiracists has been giving advice to the public on simple measures by which the increasing menace of mind control, already so prevalent in today's society, may be thwarted. It gives me great pleasure, therefore, to present to you today the founder of the League, Miss Sylvia Stankhurst, singing for us a song which offers stage advice to the worried citizen. Sylvia's mother, the celebrated Emmeline Stankhurst, will accompany on the pianoforte.
Folks, it's time for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Necky. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Take it away, guys.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Shiny Side Out with Dave.
And Necky. How are you guys?
Hey, we're so enjoying this. It's not funny. Look, I'd just like to say to everyone, we have another jam-packed show. So if we can hold off any calls, if you're able to, we'll take them in the last half an hour. So let me just tell you how you can call in. If you're in the US, you can call in on 347-688-2902. If you're anywhere in the world whatsoever, you can add Freedom Screen with an N on the end, Freedom Screen, all one word. Add that to Skype. And just if you could, try and wait till the last 30 minutes of the show to call in. What we'd prefer you do, though, is do a couple of things. You can come to freedomslips.com to listen to the show and join the chat. We'd love to be able to live chat with you during the show. If you want to listen to or get updates about what we're talking about during the week, know what the show's about in advance, it'd be fantastic if you could either join our Twitter. I know that each one of you is going to have at least one of these mediums: Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Look for Shiny Side Out, and you'll come across us. And we're posting our information across that as we go along, and it's fantastic.
Yep, and that's media. If you had a medium, you wouldn't need us. You'd be getting it through the Ghost Network. That's all right. Anyway. I just wanted to quickly say as well, last week we had Jose on, and thank you again if you're listening. It was brilliant to have you on, and we had a ball, and hope to have you on again. Guys, today's show is entirely tinfoil hat. Okay, I will not give a warning. Dave will not give a warning. You must strap on your tinfoil hat now. Okay?
A warning is now. Please,
okay.
If you're children and you don't know how to fold tinfoil safely, please get an adult. But I'm telling you right now, or even you're adult and you're incapable of doing it yourself, hurry up and get it on. You're going to need it. This show is wild.
That's right. So please fasten your seatbelts, adjust your tinfoil hats, ensuring the shiny side faces out, and suspend all preconceived ideas. Okay? Sorry, I just had to get up. And we also have news items. In fact, one news item specifically that relates to this show, which was very fortunate. In fact, I only found it today. And I was, just grazing the internet, and there it was, and I go, wow, how about that for serendipity? So hang for that. It's the first news item we're going to bring to you after the topic today. So Dave, today we're talking about dimensional travel, right?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's definitely tinfoil hat material.
It is. Now, we've some of the links and the science around this, right? Some of the things that we have to do, we've actually spoken about in previous shows.
That's right.
We've discussed this recently ourselves, Mecky and I, offline, and we're going to help you guys by doing a episode 10, wrap it up show. We're going to connect it. We're going to be rehashing what we're talking about, but really connecting it all together to make it a larger picture. Remember, each one of these shows is an individual piece of the same picture.
Yeah, and that show, the 10th show, will be in 2 weeks' time. So not next Sunday, but the Sunday after. Next Sunday, in fact, we have a guest, but we'll talk about that toward the end of this show.
Yep.
So yeah, but yeah, you're right, Dave, because this really is a tapestry of theories and thoughts, as well as conspiracies, I guess, and different scientific avenues, which we intend to bring together for you. And like Dave said, hopefully we can do that in show number 10, at least up to this point.
And we'd just like to reiterate once again, we're not making this stuff up. This is out there already.
Yeah.
And there's physics which backs, except for today's show, but there's connections to physics which will make sense.
Yes.
It backs up what we're saying. We're posting links in the chat. If you're just listening to this on the net, enjoying yourself, thinking, it's all a bit too much, don't forget you need your tinfoil hat, you need to get in the chat, you need to be able to click the links and see where we've got our information from as well.
Yeah, and look, the links are there. You can follow it up. There's some things that you find on the net which appear fraudulent or hoax. That's fair enough, and I've mentioned one of those here as well. Not so much a hoax, but rather a misconception. But the key is, like Dave said, the information is out there, right? And all we're doing is putting up signposts. Don't take what we say for gospel, because it probably isn't. But,
hang on. We just I'm going to defend you there for a minute.
No,
it's not
thanks,
exactly true. We do as much research as we can to cover the topics that we're going to be talking about. Even during that research, we find errors in their information and find the more earlier source. So if you see something in a not mainstream news article, we'll actually go back all the way through it, find the original one, or it's the best we can find, and we're bringing you that information. So you don't have to waste your entire week. We do that for you, and we get through all this information, sift through the chaff, and discard it. There's a whole bunch of stuff we don't want to have to mention to you if it's not at least viable in the concept of our tapestry.
Yeah, and look, Dave, that's absolutely correct. And I want to give you a quick example before we get started on today's show. Just a very quick one. We spoke about ancient tech and ancient civilizations some shows ago. The source material that you should go back to is not necessarily books that were written in this century, right? You should go back, you should go back to Plato, right? The dialogues of Critias and Timaeus, where he describes Atlantis in some detail, or rather the visit of Solon to Egypt, where he's, where he's told about these things. Read Louis Spence. Louis Spence wrote in the 19th century, and he wrote about Lemuria, Mu, and Atlantis as well. So go back, right? Like, don't necessarily take what's written today, even though there's a lot of good stuff, but educate yourself and see where it all comes from. And there are also folk legends. Go to your library and look at ancient mythologies, right? Read that. It's astonishing. Gilgamesh, man, it blew me away. But anyway, so it's really important to go to the root material of all sources. Today, that's going to be a little bit more difficult because there's very little information out there that's concrete or empirically provable, okay? Having said that, it is because of the nature of the topic. Okay, it is well beyond fringe science. Science is just catching up to where we want to take you, and there's just no empirical evidence as such. Okay, so let's get started. Simply.
Oh, hang on. The textbooks themselves. The argument is normally it takes around about it could be taking 100 years, but usually around about 30 years for science to catch up with what they've actually discovered themselves before textbooks are updated. You're only ever learning something that was more than 30 years old. Let's put it that way.
Well, and that's very, very true. I mean, think about all the great thinkers in the world, right? And Galileo and Newton and all those guys. I mean, excuse me. I mean, some of them were threatened with death. Because what they were teaching went against the common knowledge or accepted knowledge of the time. Now, of course, it's accepted knowledge, but back then it was revolutionary. The Earth is round. It doesn't, and it revolves around the sun.
Number one, we're reinventing everything. So I'm just going to take, I think this is a great line. So we were that the church was teaching that the center of our solar system was the Earth, or everything went around it, though making models to make that work was just impossible. Obviously, the simplest thing was easier to put the sun in the middle. But anyway, the people who discovered that were threatened with death. They were threatened to take funding away from them. They were also asked to renounce what they had claimed, just to keep the face of the church. Like, what? That's just not right. It's not right that this happens. But you know what? It's still happening today, even though, we've come along, hundreds of years, and it's still going on today.
Yeah, because we still have the same human condition, we're essentially ruled by greed and self-interest, and that's our problem. But okay, we are starting to philosophize.
That's right. So let's strap them on and let's get into it.
Yeah. So Dave, let's just quickly talk about dimensions here. So what is a dimension? So guys, when we talk about dimensions, normally we're talking about the three spatial dimensions, which is, let's call it easily a back and forth, left to right, up and down. So those are three spatial dimensions. But we're living in a world that is also ruled by the fourth dimension, which is duration, or what we commonly call time. Right now, within the first three dimensions, and I don't know if you've seen the fantastic movie The Time Machine with I forget his name, Australian actor, but back in the 50s, and he explains it very eloquently. We have free motion or free movement within the three spatial dimensions, I guess within reason, but with enough energy we can move around. The fourth dimension, which is time, we have only one direction or one perceived direction, which is linear. Okay, so those are the four dimensions we know.
And we're a passenger in that journey.
100%. Absolutely, right? So the interesting thing, though, is this, right? Now, the three spatial dimensions, and I'm going to say here as well that the time dimension is the same, all appear to exist at right angles to each other. Well, what does that mean? Okay, so right angle. Okay, so if you've got a line you draw, let's call this back and forth, right? So that's one dimension. You draw a line that crosses it in a perpendicular fashion, meaning it crosses it at right angles. That's left to right. That's the second dimension, right? Then you draw a line that goes up from the middle point, right, and intersects the other lines. Where
sort of out of the paper.
Correct.
Up,
exactly
out
right.
of the paper.
Out of the paper. Again, at a right angle, 90-degree angle. So what I'm saying, this is actually important to keep in mind, because I'm going to talk about that in a little while. Now, so that means that that the time dimension, in my mind, in Dave's mind, and hopefully in your mind, is also at a right angle to this, right? It seems to make sense. It just seems to be replicating infinitely. Okay, so now, as an aside, I would like to talk about... no, I don't want to talk about that. I'll talk about it after. So we talk about, but dimensions here we're talking about as well in mathematics. We're talking about additional dimensions to that. Okay, and you can Google this yourself. There's a link I'm going to post from Wiki, which is really brilliant. Math and physics actually require more dimensions for certain theories to work.
I'll post it.
Oh, okay, cool. So that means that there seem to be more than the four dimensions I just mentioned. I can't describe them to you, but mathematicians and physicists believe they're spatial in nature, right? Meaning they're like the first three dimensions rather than the time dimension. So what are these theories that require the extra dimension? Well, there's the superstring theory, which requires 10 dimensions. There's the M theory, which requires 11 dimensions. And there's the bosonic string theory, which requires a whopping 24 extra dimensions, okay?
And that comes from the boson particle.
Correct. Now, I won't go into detail here on what these theories are, because it leads us a little far afield, but do yourself a favor and have a look, okay? So, now these extra dimensions, like I said, are said to be spatial, right? However, we only perceive the three dimensions, okay? And up to this point, no experimental or observational evidence is available to confirm that these other dimensions exist. It's all entirely theoretical, mathematical. This is what I find interesting. A possible explanation was that these space dimensions, or these extra space dimensions, are curled up, okay? So on a subatomic scale, so it's hard to envision, I guess, but these dimensions are sort of embedded in our spatial world on a quark and string level, which is extremely tiny, right, guys? So we can't really see it. If that's true, I don't know, but that's certainly the theory right now. Now, do you remember what we just said about these dimensions being at right angles to each other? Right. So there's a theory out there that's called the multiverse theory. Right? The multiverse theory in the news item actually relates to that, which is brilliant. Talks about universes, like our universe. Now, I'm not talking about a galaxy or a cluster of galaxies. I'm talking about our universe, right? There are meant to be a number of them, or potentially an infinite number. So what does that mean? Well, it means that our universe could be like the page of a book, right? And there's like a billion books, or sorry, a billion pages, and so on and so forth. But how about this? How about those universes also have 4 spatial dimensions, or 24? But they are all at right angles to our universe. Do you know what I mean? So we got our universe.
Are there enough right angles to be able to do this?
If you believe that higher spatial dimensions are possible, then yes. And I direct you guys to Escher. Are you familiar with the drawings of M.C. Escher? Now he's drawn these stairs that seem to be going up and down at the same time. Right?
Left and right.
Yeah, exactly. You can
In and out.
100%. Now you can only draw this. You can actually build it, but the concept is there. So you could, if you had more than 4 or 5 dimensions available to you, you could bend the others back in on themselves. And that will become important later when we speak about the phenomena that are associated here. So if there are higher spatial dimensions, then these things are possible. And there's an infinite number of right angles. This is really the key here, right? For our understanding, and our minds are limited, unfortunately, unless maybe you're Stephen Hawking or someone, we only can see the right angles of the spatial dimensions, so forward, backwards, left, right, up and down, right? And all of those dimensions are at right angles. For us, that is really easy to describe mathematically. It's really just a cube, right? That's what it is. It's like a dice. You've got the perfect description of the 3 space dimensions in a cube at right angles. Cool. So now,
can I just jump in for 1 sec?
Jump, dude.
Oh, cool, man. All right. There's another way of putting it, which might be easier for people to understand. And that is, if you draw a cube, and then you draw a smaller one, inside the existing cube that you've just drawn, and you draw lines from the corners of those cubes to touch the corners of the inside or the outside cube, so they're joined together. All right? Both cubes exist in exactly the same space, right? And I'm going to look it up while Meki's going to keep going for a second, but I'll look it up and I'll post as a YouTube clip which may help you. Now, whether that cube inside the cube is in it or jutting out or changed its rotation and aspect or what's the other term when you're flying a plane? So whether it's up, down, left, right, or in, out is altered. As long as those 2 cubes intersect, the spaces inside those cubes, for instance, and all the facets on the outside, all 6 on each one, is actually able to coexist in the same space.
And if you guys have watched the Avenger, the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, then you're familiar with the concept. And like Tones just put into the chat, you're absolutely correct. What Dave just described is called a tesseract.
That's right. Thanks,
or
Tones.
a hypercube.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Hypercubes, exactly.
And these are theoretical objects. In the Avenger movie, of course, it's a real thing and it has limitless energy and all kinds of things, which is wonderful. But the concept there, so it's not an alien concept to anyone by any stretch of the imagination. But if you can find that, and Dave, if you can find maybe a link to the Möbius strip.
Which one?
The Möbius strip.
Oh, can you spell it?
How about I find that link?
You find that link, and I'll look at the Hypercube YouTube clip, which I'll post as well. All right.
Okay. Let me just ramble on then. Okay, so the Möbius strip is again is a fascinating thing, and I'm going to put that in here. Essentially, it's a string that closes in on itself and has no end, and each surface is it's only one surface. It's hard to. It looks like it looks like a string that has 2 surfaces, but in fact it's only one surface which keeps repeating in on itself. Okay, so I've just found it, I put it in. So that's when we talk about higher dimensional math and higher dimensional physics, right? It's a whole bunch of stuff that is just very difficult to wrap your head around, and it's easy to see it represented graphically. So there's certainly Escher does a fantastic job, but really do have a look at his drawings. Most of them deal with the higher dimensional ramifications of that.
So what I've been able to do, I've posted in the best Hypercube demonstration that I could possibly find, and I found this a long time ago. I had to go through my favorites. but here it is. We're going to put this onto the YouTube channel for Shiny Side Out, okay?
It is actually awesome. I'm just looking at it now. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Look, he takes you through exactly what we've just spoken about, which, please listen to it. It's actually something quite tough to get your head around, because we're trying to, or attempting to, can I take this into the next topic?
Take it.
All right. So we're trying to describe something that we can't replicate, right? Our 3D that we're currently in, if you get your left hand and do the old electricians, 3 right angles to each other with your thumb, your first finger and your middle finger sticking out at right angles to each other, that's the best we can do. We're in 3 dimensions. We can only show 3 dimensions. But trying to, like your cartoon is 2 dimensions, right? If we were only in 2 dimensions, like the classic book, Flatlands.
Love Flatland.
Flatland, you know what? My physics teacher showed it to me in the States when I was there, and I was in love with the concept of how impossible it is to describe something that isn't in your dimension. If you don't have any experience, how can you describe it? Well, this fellow in the Hypercube demonstration does a pretty good job of being able to wrap your head around it. Right? So Flatlands was all about a 2-dimensional world that only saw each other from the side-on view, being only left and right and up and down, well, in and out, basically, I suspect, right? Or up and down on a piece of paper. So 2 dimensions only, and they had all different kinds of shapes, triangles and squares and circles, and they lived in triangle and shape in circle houses and, all of those things. Now, it was very interesting because one of those was plucked out. One of the people living there in the story was plucked out and shown their universe from above. But they didn't have a shape for a circle because they can't draw one. They didn't have a shape for a square, a triangle, or whatever. And the only way that the person was plucked out and then put back into their world, having seen it from a distance, from the 3rd dimension, was having an awful time trying to describe to people what they saw. And this is, from us in a 3rd dimension, knowing what 2 dimensions is, it's actually, as an environment, it's a lot easier for us to convey that to each other. Just a flat piece of paper, I drew a drawing on it, yeah? But it's difficult to draw a 3-dimensional cube on a piece of paper and have it looked at from the side to understand what it is. So that's really the trouble that this poor person had. And it was really likened to a couple of experiences that people had when tinfoil hats, right? Get them ready. When people were abducted by aliens and described of, other things about the Earth and then placed back again. I find that parallels that description extraordinarily. And one of the things that now physics has come up with, and science and mathematics has said, that we're having the same difficulty trying to teach everybody how the 4th dimension, well, I can't say really the 4th dimension because that's really time, but if we had the next dimension or another one, and how does it interact with us?
Yeah, just the next spatial dimension, really.
Yeah, another spatial dimension. It makes it extraordinarily complicated trying to teach someone else. If you've got your head wrapped around it and you understand how it works, how do you convey that to somebody else? And that's extraordinarily complicated. It's really difficult to do it in our environment as well, given the example. But watch the video to sort of get how it works. The way that I try to teach people how it works is by saying, the old telegraph line, and we've spoken about this, Mecky, right?
Absolutely. And
if in the old days, a single telegraph line costs thousands of dollars. They had to run it between 2 places, usually very geographically, separated from each other. Little telegraph machine at either end, and they'd tap away and they'd send long messages, and it's all cool, right? However, another shop opens up next door to the one who's got the telegraph unit, and another shop opens up in the big city where it comes from, and we've got to send another cable down that telegraph pole run 1,000 miles.
You mean
what do we do?
Cable? That's crazy, Dave.
You mean have 2? No, of course. And look, it was beyond the cost of these little shops to do it, but a guy, I think he was from GE, don't get me wrong, don't quote me on it, he discovered that not only could he put 2, but he could split that wire into 4 by changing them out of phase by 90 degrees. And we know that 3 90s is 360. Right, 4 90s is 360.
There you go.
Thank you. Thanks for the maths. Okay, so, and by being able to set them at 90 degrees apart from each other, each one of these signals could be sent down the same line. And so on the same copper line, you could have 4 signals. That doubled to 8, then to 16, and they just thought this guy was a genius. What we've got the same concept around is a cross-section of that wire, so to speak, and saying, in our world that we can see, there might be 4, 8, 16, it could be 1, 2, 3, we don't know what number it is, but we're now finding that we're getting towards understanding that there might actually be something else here next to us right now. Scientists and physicists right now, theoretical ones, Michio Kaku is one of those guys, and he says, it could be, another dimension could be a millimeter away from you right now, and we don't know. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, look, and this is the thing. And a lot of authors have actually used that kind of thinking to describe what they do. I don't know if you guys read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Dirk Gently's Dark Tea Time of the Soul. So this gentleman, and for the life of me, I can't think of his name right now, Douglas Adams, who is now unfortunately passed away.
The late Douglas Adams.
Yeah, he said that all these dimensions exist right next to each other, and if you just twist the right way, turn the right way, you can enter them and just experience them as well. But we'll get to that kind of thing a little bit later. Now, Dave very eloquently pointed out how flatland works and how it's hard to explain to people just how higher spatial dimensions would look like. Now, think about this way as well. I mean, we've got a fairly limited human perception. You know, we're not really well equipped to even live in this world. Visible light.
I was going to say, how so?
Oh, I'm telling you, it's visible light. As a very simple example, if you go anywhere on the net, or if you remember your high school science, there's a whole spectrum of frequencies that goes from microwaves to the infrared to the ultraviolet and whatnot, and in between, like right in the middle where we like to be, which is of course incorrect, but right in the middle there's our visible spectrum of light.
You're right, that is incorrect.
But we're the pinnacle of
link showing the radio spectrum.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you, sir. Now, okay, so we see very little, okay? And we do not perceive the infrared except for when actually it's near us. It's heat. And we have no sense whatsoever, not even a heat sense, to see the ultraviolet. And forget about all the bandwidths and frequencies that live after that. So we're already limited. And the shutter speed on our eyes, and I don't know if you remember last week, guys, but last week we talked to Jose and the rod phenomenon he discovered. These things move at incredible speeds, which we just can't see. Okay? I don't know if recently there have been some amazing advances made in the field of video cameras and so forth, and quite a few shows came out that showed super slowed down motion of, for example, a hummingbird or a drop of water hitting something, and there's like a whole bunch of shows, and it's really quite astonishing.
Oh, hang on. So that's the 10,000 frames per second camera they made.
Correct. And out of a million, I'm making the number up, out of a million impressions that our eyes, that fall in our cornea, we probably process 5,000. Okay, and that's preconceived filter that we have in our brain, otherwise we wouldn't be able to deal with it.
So that's per second?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no. Yeah. Each instant, you're bombarded by sensory input. Okay, I'm talking about only visual at the moment. And out of the multitude of inputs, you only process a very, very small number. And I believe, as an aside, sorry, I didn't actually put it in the show notes, Dave, but I have to say this, I believe that autistic children do not have that filter.
No, actually, you are absolutely right. They have to learn in a special way. Pardon me for coughing online. They have to learn in a special way. They have particular talents or features about themselves which exceed normal humans. However,
correct.
There's also something where they all look very similar. There is attributes about their physical appearance which make them extremely similar. Now, I'm not saying other than they usually portray a gift of some kind which is pronounced markedly different than a regular person. So they may play the piano really well, or if you just flick, like one of my friends, if you flick the phone book through, not a phone book in this country, someone else's phone book, something he's never seen before, because let me know he's read the whole thing, you can flick it past and you can say, what's the phone number of this person? And within about a minute, he'll tell you.
Yeah, we're talking
extraordinary talents.
Super eidetic memory. Okay,
yeah,
so,
absolutely. Photographic memory, which is extraordinary. So don't let me hold up. I've just put the visible light spectrum in there.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Yeah, sorry. So there was an aside to autism, which seems to be on the rise these days, and we'll probably have a show on that in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we are already limited even in this universe, in this dimensional space, with our perceptions. Okay, so just wanted to put it out there. Other animals to see much better than us, hear much better than us, blah blah blah. I would like to go back quickly to the multiverse theory. Okay, like we said earlier. There's a theory that an infinite number, or maybe a finite number, of universes coexist in some higher dimensional form or ether. Okay, so these bubbles, let's call them bubbles, right? These bubble universes seem to all coexist in this ether. Now, they are intrinsically self-consistent. What I mean by this is they don't need any of the other universes to exist. They're just self-consistent. They exist within themselves. They're autonomous. Okay, and they're also thought to be separated from each other. That's the going theory. And the news item today, is, as I said, is a blinder. Now, however, if certain special conditions could cause a bleed or temporary localized alignment, what would happen? Well, maybe some sort of...
I've got an answer.
Go on.
A gateway could be created between the two.
Correct. Right? So what are these conditions? You know what? I have no idea. But there's certainly certain energies we haven't tapped yet. Electricity seems to play a part. Electromagnetism seems to play a part. But enormous... And some of these energies are enormous, right? And others are not so enormous. So, and if that gateway were created, Dave, right?
Mm-hmm.
What could happen if let's say we have that gateway?
Well, so what kinds of things? Well, I believe that we've sort of got that already. I think you're right. We're saying that there's some things that can get us there at the moment.
Yes.
So one of those, are you talking about? That starts with the letter O?
Could be.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we've spoken in a previous show about orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, and that was, what's his name, David?
Hudson.
David Hudson, fantastic bloke. In 1987, discovered it himself, wanted to patent it. And there's a brilliant white flash during the heating up of, say, white gold powder or monatomic gold, which produces gamma rays as well as X-rays, ultraviolet, infrared, radio waves. It's a brilliant white flash, and it's been our belief since we've started this research that, in fact, that's an interdimensional gateway that is created because of that brilliance that occurs between the two. The same thing would be found with a nuclear explosion. You have that over result rather than the calculation result of the amount of energy that's produced. And it's exactly the same thing as a very slight heating up of a regular material that's found on Earth in abundance that we didn't know it was there before. In seawater, what was that previous show? Like 30 tons per cubic kilometre?
No, it was 30 kilos, I think.
30 kilo. That's still a lot, right?
Yeah, it is a lot.
Yeah, if I had that much in my house right now, it'd be unreal.
Oh,
okay,
good.
It'd be a lot. I think it'd be bigger than my house as a pile. Okay, so when a slight heating, which doesn't make any sense, calculated out, suddenly disappears off the pallet, off the little container, the little dish that you've got. See you, Mad. Lovely show beforehand, by the way. It had me in hysterics if anyone was listening. I shouldn't say that. I mean, to all those listening, it was a hysterical show. Well done. And thanks for pushing some guests towards me too. It's you're a legend. So what we've got is this. It doesn't calculate out right, and it's one of the things that I'll go into a bit later on. But what it is, it appears to us that when this material disappears and it out of our dimension, we just don't know where it goes, just like we don't know how the link between quantum tunneling and quantum entanglement work. We can only say it goes via maybe subspace. Right now we have to consider it magic. No other way can we describe it but like magic. It disappears and turns up there. But our imagination is stronger than us. 30 years ago we came up with the term subspace. It was part of Star Trek universe. It's a way of communicating effortlessly with no time delay. Even around a world, trying to ring someone, you get on the phone, you get some time delay. Even on mobile phones, in the same city, you can get delay on your phone, which is just extraordinary. But this is our imagination. Remember, everything we make, we have to imagine it first, and then we build it. We end up building all the stuff except maybe hover cars. And don't get me started. So one of the things is, well, honestly, because where are they? You 2010, where's my hover car? Right?
I'll tell you about them later, but keep going, dude.
All right. Oh, cool. I want to buy one off you. So really, what we're talking about here is the radio spectrum. To produce gamma rays requires a lot of energy. If you heat up monatomic gold, very slightly, we're talking it's only in watts the amount of energy we're putting out. Suddenly there's a lot of energy produced and the thing disappears, but it comes back again unfazed by this movement into it. And what we would appear as another dimension. It doesn't become invisible, right? So please, David Hudson, do your research, get out there and have a look at some of that stuff. It's amazing, right? It's not like magnesium tones, right? Which just gives off a brilliant white light.
Magnesium also leaves ash once you burn it. So
it does, and this stuff
there's nothing.
And monatomic gold does a whole bunch of other properties. There's 17 parts to the David series of monatomic gold videos. So get into that. It's pretty cool.
And I think it's important to say, that once it goes through these transformations, the monatomic gold powder, it also reappears. Okay, so first it loses mass, it disappears altogether. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then it comes back.
Now, while it was disappeared, and I don't mean becoming invisible, and it doesn't lose, when we say it loses 44% of its mass, its actual physical amount of material is stay there. However, it becomes anti-gravitational, losing 44% of its weight.
What do you mean by that, Dave, anti-gravitational? Sounds intriguing.
Okay, well, that would be a superconductor that mm-hmm. you actually have to heat up to become a superconductor. Mm-hmm. All of our previous superconductors have all been, you must chill them to make them work. A superconductor, there's a lot of properties about superconductors. One is it can't actually conduct electricity. It doesn't. It doesn't contain any metal. It doesn't. It's not a magnet. Well, it isn't. All of these things were found by David Hudson through his experiments, and he spent a rather large amount trying to find out what it was. And in fact, if you have monatomic gold in front of you and you put hydrogen on it, it becomes another element, which is just extraordinary. It starts to assume things. Look, but the magic around this is that we're looking at currently anecdotal evidence, right, for dimensional travel with a substance that we just heat up, which is extraordinary.
And you will have realized by now that both Dave and I think that this white gold powder is a very important substance, because I don't think the show has gone past since that we haven't mentioned it. so you're quite right in assuming that this is one of the keys. In fact, one of the key keys, which is a bit of a double Dutch, to unlock the overall mysteries that surround us. I really believe that is one of the key cornerstones. Mm-hmm. But Dave, just to go quickly back to the gateways, you're right. You're 100% correct, right? So it disappears, goes somewhere. It has to go somewhere, right? Because it comes back. Correct. It's not here anymore, but then it comes back as well, right? So it doesn't just disintegrate, if you will. So we've discussed quantum tunneling. We've discussed quantum entanglement with you guys before. We've also discussed the potential flawed space-time continuum we inhabit, rather. So meaning that it's not all perfect, and these gateways or cracks can actually occur. Now, okay, this will bring us to this will bring us to the point in the show where you really have to just bear with us. You can investigate this for yourself. The links are there. Okay, we're not adding anything to this. No. So this is how it's reported out there. I am in the process of investigating further to see if I can find some more books or newspaper articles. But the whole show is a tinfoil hat zone, okay? But we now need to make sure we need to make sure that your arms are inside the vehicle and that you're securely strapped into the tinfoil capsule.
That's right. Now, flash photography is not allowed.
No, but you can take notes if you wish. There will be a test later. Okay, so now we're talking about some things. Okay, interdimensional travelers. Now, these are people.
Hang on. Wait.
Go.
Interdimensional travelers.
Yeah, that's right. I know.
So, what we've just set already as a foundation, like lawyers, like people that would be defending you in court, we've set precedents. We've said some materials appear to do this on their own, or slightly heated. We have theoretical physicists suggesting that the dimensions themselves exist right around us. Yeah?
Correct.
What we've also shown, we've shown that they exist, that travel between them appears to be occurring with a simple white powder with little or no energy. So it either creates its own, I'm not going to say wormhole. I don't know that that's quite true, but I think interdimensional gateway is probably the best way of putting it.
You're right.
That they seem to be all around us, and now we're introducing travel between them?
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying that this is true. What I'm saying to you is that it has been reported as true. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I wasn't there. I didn't see it. I don't think Dave has seen any of this either.
No.
But actually, that's not entirely true either. Because I will share with you.
No, I've seen something myself that appears,
I think after this we should share some of our personal experiences with. I call it quantum shift. It's probably wrong, but I call it quantum shift.
That's a great term for it. We should patent it. No one else.
I like it. Yeah, let's. Okay, so we've got quantum tunneling, quantum entanglement, and you heard it here first, guys. Quantum shift.
Nice.
Okay, so now, this is the story of a man who in 1954, and on the net it's usually reported in the 1990s. I looked into some detail. It is not the 1990s. This happened in 1954. That came to Japan in a plane. He landed, and customs wouldn't let him through. And you ask yourselves, why didn't they let him through? Now, they didn't let him through because he came from a country that does not exist. The country he came from was called Tau Red. And apparently, it replaced, in his universe, the country that we know here as Andorra. Andorra is a tiny little European country. If you have not heard of it, do not fret. That's okay. I am from Europe, and I have heard of it. I've never been to it. No, literally, if you blink, you've driven through it.
So okay. It's a big town then.
It's much smaller than Luxembourg or even Monaco. Or any of those places.
So they have their own passports.
Absolutely. Yeah. It used to be like a principality, right, run by a duke or whatever. So he came from this tower country. Now, okay, you go, well, you just made it up. Well, not really, because apparently he was a businessman. He spoke several languages, and the Japanese among them, so there was no language barrier there. He also was meant to go to a business meeting. That's why he went to Japan. He carried a passport from that country. He carried the driver's license from that country. Now, while the passport itself couldn't have existed because the country didn't exist, all the stamps in his passport were identical to the stamps that the Japanese used in Japan at the time.
So they're current. They're the current stamps that Japan used, and it proves that he's been there many times.
Well, yeah, at the very least, right? Because, I mean, if this was a hoax or forgery, it was one of the most elaborate ever done, and for no apparent point. Okay.
I get you. There was no motive behind it, right?
No, I mean, it didn't make any sense. I mean, the guy himself, it's reported, was very upset and thought he was like, a victim of a practical joke, and he couldn't quite believe that what the people were telling him, no, your country doesn't exist, and so forth.
So he was held for hours too, right?
He was held by the customs officials. He said, my country has existed for 1,000 years in Europe, blah, 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 whatever. So, okay, so what it is, they then took him away and put him under guards in a hotel. He was actually under police guard. Now, all of this happened, and this is you can follow this up yourself. Quite an astonishing story. It gets weirder though, right? Because while he was under guard in the hotel, he disappeared. He vanished. He vanished from his hotel room. Now, you can conjecture here that.
But he climbed out the window.
Well, no, he didn't. Okay, just because they checked, and that was ruled out as a possibility.
Because he was 15 floors off the ground.
It was quite high from
with
the ground.
no ledge.
No, and there was no record of him leaving Japan either, or anything like that. It's a very strange story. We can only hope that he, I guess, quantum shifted out of this world and back to his own. But it is a very, very odd story. And again, it's not empirical evidence, and I'm not putting it forward as such. It is entirely an anecdotal piece of evidence that I found fascinating.
But that did include the equivalent of the FBI in America, right?
Oh, no, the authorities were involved. Yeah, absolutely. This was taken seriously because it was such an incredible case, if you will, right? Now, for the next case, we have to go a little bit further back into time, and a similar thing occurred in 1851. 51.
Oh, some homeland coming out of you there.
That reminds me of that movie. What's it called? With Peter Sellers, where he plays a German scientist, and they bring in about World War III. Yep. Fantastic. Anyway, sorry. I will post that for you. So there was a man called Joseph Vorin, he was found wandering around the German village of Frankfurt an der Oder, not to be confused with Frankfurt am Main. They're two different cities, and Frankfurt an der Oder is in what used to be East Germany. Okay, so when the Germans asked him, or the authorities rather, where he was from, he told them that he was from Laxaria, a country on the continent of Zakaria. Now, that baffled the authorities because neither of the places existed anywhere on any of the maps of the world, and it still doesn't. And again, this guy also subsequently disappeared. And this is the information that I have. It's quite thin, but I just wanted to point out that these things have happened before. There's another one. In 1905, a young man was arrested in Paris for stealing a loaf of bread, right? And he was found to speak a language that nobody understood. And after some interrogations by the authorities again, the man who managed to convey that he was from a place called Lisbia. Now,
sounds promising so far. We've got a name. Yep.
Yeah, I know. So they thought, oh, well, fair enough. Maybe that's Lisbon, right? Which is a city in Portugal. So a Portuguese interpreter was brought in to talk to the young man. But he was not Portuguese. Okay? And apparently the language that he spoke was not an invented babble either, because they had some linguists quizzing him, and apparently it was consistent with syntactical rules. Now, I don't know if you guys are linguists out there, but essentially all languages follow rules, especially natural languages. But this language appeared similar to Esperanto.
No, that makes sense.
So it was a maybe more of a conceived language, rather than a natural language. This will become important later when I talk about the Voynich document. Now, eventually, the strange-speaking man was released, except, of course, he also disappeared. Okay, so these are three cases which have been reported. Okay, I do not have any photos. I don't have any physical proof. Dave doesn't have any photos or any physical proof. All we're saying here is these are reports as they exist. Are you familiar with Charles Ford, Dave?
Yeah, I am, but I wanted to know what he said because I remember there was something. Yeah. Yeah,
that's right. So Charles Ford, and you might have heard of fortune phenomena. Charles Ford was a guy that some 100 years ago started investigating strange phenomena and frogs falling from the sky and things like that. So he was quite famous in his time, and he had a magazine called Hoy. Now, he said this. So he was an investigator of paranormal events. If there have ever been instances of teleportations of human beings from somewhere else to this earth, an examination of infirmaries and workhouses and asylums, and he's talking about mental asylums, might lead to some marvelous disclosures. Early in the year 1928, a man did disappear. So it did appear in a town in New Jersey, and did tell that he had come from the planet Mars. Where do you think he ended up? In an insane asylum, of course.
Absolutely.
So what Charles Ford is saying is this. Now, these events might happen a lot more than we think. And the people that we lock up as being insane may in fact not be insane. They might just have quantum shifted here. And I want to put this to you. I mean, if anyone acts out of the ordinary, if anyone did things that, didn't quite fit and spoke a language nobody understood, what would we do with that person? These days, of course, we would lock them up.
Lock them up. ECT, man. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Electroshock therapy. EST.
That's exactly right. Now, I'm going to post 2 links into the chat for you guys. You can follow
I did the second one already.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so you can follow it up yourself, go further. If you find more material, please send it to us. If you have books or newspaper articles or you know of anything else that would point us in the right direction here, we would be awesomely grateful to you.
All right. Oh, I've got one.
Yep.
I've got one here. It happens to be from the same site, but don't let that destroy really, where this is all coming from, right? The story is the terrified woman from another universe wakes up here. Now, they're talking about not another galaxy, but from a parallel universe where a decision was possibly made along the way and it caused a fork. Now, we spoke about this before, didn't we? In time traveling. Mecky?
Absolutely.
All right. So, where a decision might be made in which you said you did one on your own.
I did, yeah. Good man.
Where your life may change or fork off in 2 different directions. Now, it apparently seems as though we have an example of that. There was a lady from South America, and she woke up one day in a bed, her own bed, but not quite the same one, in the same apartment she lives in, and got up, just went about doing her own duties. Now, what happened was, she looked around her house, and a couple of things were missing. The keys weren't in the right spot. She didn't really think much of it, had a shower, and went to work. When she got to her office, they said, she noticed on the door immediately that there wasn't her name on the door. And she went, that's weird. Maybe they didn't tell me something, and talked to her boss, who said, no, you don't work in this department, you work over there. And she felt a bit weird by that. And, of course, she logged on, her password and everything was the same. She logged in and was working fine. She sort of blabbled her way through the day, asking a lot more questions than she normally would, because she wasn't even in that area at work. She was doing something completely different. But she muddled her way through it, asking a lot of questions. Now, the odd part about this is that she looked the same. Her hair was the same. Everything about her was the same, just that she wasn't who she really was. So imagine if you did the same thing. You turn up at work and they go, it's not your office. I don't know what's wrong with you. But you work down the hall, right? You go down the hall and you're working with people. You might know some of them. You might not know some others. Maybe your boss is different. And you go, well, I'll just string it along. And if anyone asks you too difficult a question, I'm not really feeling well. Well, that's what she said. Then she went home, only to discover that she had been previously dating a fellow for a long time, and they split up, and then she started dating another guy. Well, when she got home, it was still the first guy. The other guy didn't even come into her life. In fact, she hired a private investigator to find the other guy, who had a son that they used to hang out for months, right? Anyway, doesn't exist. Went to his apartment. He's never lived there, right? It was like the other guy was deleted from time. And the funny thing is, there could have been 2 reasons for this. Maybe the guy was deleted from time, and all the stuff went back to the point where he no longer existed. Or, in fact, it seems that she always, and this is translated from Spanish, but it seems as though, and then her explanation was that she had sort of gone to sleep for 5 months and then woken up back then, but lived that whole period of time in her life. Now, we're used to seeing this in Star Trek and all science fiction stuff where, I love the time play they have in the scripts. It's just fantastic. But the causality part of time travel would lead to this, where something was changed or there was a decision made. And some of our best minds in the world are coming up with exactly the same outcomes. That if this stuff is indeed true, that we can't calculate it, here we go, and these are all the possible outcomes. And look, this lady is living proof. She's started her own website. And
guys, this is the thing. She's alive today.
Yeah,
okay? She's alive today. She can be. And look, again, there's really no. This is for most experiences of not just UFOs, but any strange phenomena or events or occurrences. There's really no profit in saying that it happened to you.
All you do is get labeled a crackpot.
Yeah, and some people might even lock you up. But the thing is this. Sometimes it's compelling, and you certainly think about it. Let's say you shift universes, okay? It happens to you, and everything that you knew, maybe your wife, maybe your husband, they no longer exist. But what are you going to do? I mean, you would go a little crazy yourself and try to find them, right? And that's what she's doing in a way. She's trying to find this guy. She's trying to find her life. She's trying to get some kind of closure as to what happened to her. It's a traumatic event. Think about it. Everything you've known is gone.
Imagine if you had children. Well, how that would affect you if they weren't there, or you never met your wife, or whatever.
Yeah, and you know what? You know what people tell you here? That you're having some kind of psychotic episode, or you're really schizophrenic, or whatever the label might be. And trust me, it's a wide net they cast, because every mental disease is an individual condition. It's very, very difficult. It's very difficult to classify one schizophrenic in comparison to another.
Yeah, they stamp you on the forehead and they lock you away, right?
Correct, and because it's easier, and then they medicate you until the cows come home. But you're right, Dave. I'll bring something up.
No, they medicate you until you stop believing the story that you had.
Yeah, see, the thing is this, and if it was the truth, it means they will release you when you're truly insane. You know what I mean? So let's say what you say is the truth, but they medicate you and tell you it is not. At the point when you believe the lie, really believe it.
Their lie, not yours.
Yeah, 100%, yeah. Uh-huh. At that point, when your mind has broken, is when they say, you're fit to
You're cured.
Yeah, you're cured. Well done. Good luck to you. Off you go. Now, sorry, the break is coming up. Don't go away. We're going to talk about the link to cryptozoology and the Skinwalker Ranch afterwards.
Nice. I love the Skinwalkers.
It's amazing.
Do we have some videos or something?
I have...
There's some links?
Ooh. See, the Skinwalker phenomenon, which we'll talk about later, is as old as the North American continent. It's actually the name the Native American Indians or First Nation people gave these creatures. No, I don't have video. We do have a great link to the site, though. It's called the skinwalkerranch.org, which I'll post in now. So Anybody in the chat room can do a bit of homework in the break, read up on it and post some comments if you like. But here it comes. And it's also a very good book if you have the chance to get your hands on it. It's called the Skinwalker Ranch Mystery, or the Mystery of the Skinwalker Ranch, and it is a fantastic book. It really blew my mind when I read it. But
Tones just posted something in there, and he said that there was a movie called Another Earth.
Another Earth. Yes, there was.
Yep.
Just recently, yep.
And I think it started as a remake of one from the 60s or 70s, which I remember seeing in black and white when I was a kid. And that's where there was another Earth on the other side of the sun. We never knew it was there.
Yes. And you know what? I actually do have it. I have it. It's a mirror reversed world.
Exact mirror reverse. And the guys, when they landed on the opposite planets, because they both sent rockets from exactly the same time to that site, and it was an exact copy of Earth, but back to front.
Exactly.
Where it was a mirror reverse. And when the guy was reading and writing text, and one guy didn't mind it so much, and the other guy was just going absolutely insane.
Yes. It was actually a really fascinating concept,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sorry. We are babbling. We should be hearing the station break very soon, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. We're sort of just trailing it off here.
The reason we don't want to do any more is because once we get stuck into it, we won't be able to finish it. That's the thing with station breaks.
So everyone in the chat, anyone who's there, would just like to go through the list. I'll take it up to the 00 mark, and if we don't hear it, then we add list through the break to the top of the hour. So I'd like to say hello to Acid, Bear, Just in Time. There's both of us. Nighthawk, who looks like he's gone to bed. He does it hard, man. I can't believe he does so much work. RBN, Tones, Trem, Weisenberg, and Hovey. And here's the music.
Very good.
Catch you guys after the break.
Don't go away.
Hey all, welcome back. Hey, I just wanted to tell, we were a bit off, during the ads, we've been talking in the chat room, so if you're not in the chat room, jump in, because you get more info, you can talk to us live during the show, it's fantastic.
And I always forget to unmute, I'm so sorry. Hey guys, how are you doing?
Alright, so look, I wanted to answer Tones' question,
Yes.
alright?
Yes.
So
Can you
he
ask
said,
the question again? Yep.
okay, the question was, how long does it take for a signal to get between the Earth and Mars? And it's between 10 and 20 minutes.
It's the speed of light, guys. That's
It is, and that's just what it takes. 6 minutes from light to come from the sun to us.
correct.
Right? And that's a long time. So if it blew up, the shockwave could actually get here slower. We'd see the sun pop, but 6 minutes after it actually happened. So,
That's exactly right.
So, the next thing, my answer to that was, well, it could be instantaneous if we use quantum entanglement, and it certainly can.
Mm-hmm.
But then,
However,
Tone mentioned something which links into what we're talking about with multiverses, and so he goes, so a distant location theoretically could see a present snapshot at us before our past actually reaches them. Well, sort of and not so sort of, right? Anyone who wasn't here would see us in our past, depending on how close or far away they were from us. Right? Because, when we look at the stars could be, if they're, say, 1 light year away, just for maths purposes, it takes light 1 year to get here. Right? That's pretty much it. If they were 1 light year away, they would see us 1 year ago.
but see, this is where the thing is, though. We've got a news story relating to exactly that, Tones, and everybody out there.
Mm-hmm.
We have now come to a point where we seem to have proven, and we will read it out, we have seemed to have proven that an action, I should say, in the future can influence an event in the past.
Nice. I'm looking forward to this one.
Oh, yeah, now, we will actually read this out later, guys. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just bear with me here for a second. I'm not making this up. This is actually a bubble outside the tinfoil hat show, okay? This is now, we're not really, we're back in ordinary science, or at cutting edge of science. We have found, apparently, that a future action influences a past event. What that means is that you do something today, and you can alter the past. Okay? Now, that's a revolutionary statement and thought. And I don't know if it translates necessarily into the macro world we live in, but on a quantum level, it is certainly true. Sorry, that was a little bit of an aside to Tones. So just to let you know, so you could actually receive a message before it's sent. Okay?
That is fantastic. And I
that's
think we
the
need to talk to the CSIRO for them to get working on that one.
I reckon, yeah.
The thing that I was going to connect his question to was, a distant location theoretically could see a present snapshot of us before our past actually reaches them. Well, yeah, in fact, yes.
Yes.
Everything is possible.
Yes. And sorry, there's another question that just came up in the chat room. We'll take some time out because this is good stuff. Yep. Now, doesn't light travel in angles? Everything travels in an angular momentum in some way, in a vector. Light is different to most things because it is both, number one, a particle, and number two, a wave. Okay, this is
double slot experiment, guys. Have a look at that one.
And this is really crazy stuff, the double slot experiment. And if you're familiar with what the bleep do we know, you probably know what we're talking about. So essentially, a photon is fired through a slot, hits the screen, and it makes a pattern.
And what's called an interference pattern,
Correct.
which is shaped by the bell curve. We understand that most stuff is going to be in the middle, but if you fire a shotgun through a concrete hole from a distance.
Yes, that's exactly right. So you've got two slots, that's what happens, okay? And if you only have one slot, then you pretty much only see just the one pattern. It's pretty boring. But if you've got two slots, you would expect to see some kind of interference pattern, right? But the thing is this. If you observe the thing, and when we say observe, and it's actually someone looking at it, it's more measuring it, right? Yeah. You don't get the interference pattern, okay?
Which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, so it switches to moving from a particle to moving like a wave, okay? And it seems to be intelligent as it seems to know it is being observed.
If it's being looked at, absolutely.
So it's really quite, and again, this is one of the things that don't really make sense. They're counterintuitive, because we think a particle is exactly that. It's just like a piece of wood. It doesn't have too much thought, but it seems to react to the observer, which is a fantastic segue into the next topic, in fact.
I've actually posted a link to the Dr. Quantum double slit experiment, okay? And hopefully that's not a porn link.
Fantastic. Now, if you guys want to get the What the Bleep Do We Know, get the extended version, which goes for 8 hours. That's a real mind bender.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, so the segue is actually that we're now going to talk about cryptozoology to some extent, and the skinwalker wrench phenomenon, which seems to be a phenomenon that reacts to being observed.
So very nice segue.
Yeah, I know. And not even intended.
No, that's a classy one.
Yeah, I reckon. And now, of course, not anymore because we discussed it. But that's all.
It's being observed, so it changes the experiment.
So it does. So it's just repeating circles, guys. Wheels within wheels. Okay, so why are we talking about cryptozoology when we talk about interdimensional travel? Because of the unusual nature of most cryptozoological events. Now, what is a cryptozoological event?
Good question.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, crypto just means hidden. Okay, or concealed, if you will. And
as in cryptography, you're hiding a sentence within letters.
Exactly right, buddy. And we're going to speak about that later as well.
Cool.
It's a Voynich manuscript. Now, okay, so these animals, and they are specifically animals or hominids, seem to appear and disappear at will. And I'm talking about large black dogs, large black cats, hominids such as Yeti, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Alma, it doesn't matter where you're from in the world.
And the South American one, which is the black dog, leopardy kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Oh, what's it called?
Chupacabra.
Chupacabra, that's it.
Yeah, so you've got all these creatures right now. And the funny thing is this, we haven't really found any physical evidence yet. Okay, so for any of these. And these animals, if animals they are, seem to appear and disappear at will. Well, this was very much in evidence at the Skinwalker Ranch, which has now been disclosed as a true location. And it was actually bought of the owners by the scientists. So a whole group of scientists got together and said, this is a very strange place, and we're going to investigate it. I've posted the link earlier. I'm going to put it in for you guys again because we've had a bit of chatter since then. Do have a look at it. Look at the pictures as well. It's quite astonishing. So they went there and they had these strange electromagnetic readings. They had UFO sightings. They had sightings of big black dogs. And the thing is that the more they studied it, the more elusive the phenomenon became. Instruments wouldn't work, wouldn't pick anything up. Something would happen in a place where they didn't have instruments, and they would move the instruments, and something else would happen somewhere else. So it became increasingly difficult to a point where they thought, whatever it is we're trying to study understands we're trying to study it. And it's actually frustrating our efforts to come up with anything concrete. It's an astonishing read. It really is. And do go to the site and have a look. So I want to just quickly mention a couple of really strange things that happen. And they've come into interdimensional travel because of the very special nature. There was a shed, like a farm shed that you would find on many a farm, I would imagine. Not very large, just like a tool shed, more or less. And what these scientists found is that a full-grown bull, I think it was there for studying purposes, I'm not sure, was in that shed. It had somehow moved from its pen, which was quite a while away, or quite a distance away, into the shed. Now, this is the thing, though, right? It could not physically get in there through the door. It's entirely, even if the door had...
the door was smaller than the width of the...
Much more. It's a similar phenomenon to the sarcophagus in the Great Pyramid, right? The sarcophagus must have been built around... Sorry, the pyramid must have been built around the sarcophagus because it couldn't have been transported in there. So there was no way for the bull to get in there, right? Unless the shed was built around the bull. And that didn't happen. And even if the roof had been taken off, right? But none of these things had happened. The shed was unaltered as far as the scientists could tell, but the bull was in there. So they actually had to dismantle the shed to get the bull out.
Wow.
Now, you go, well, that's all well and good, but my point here is this. if you're taking into consideration higher spatial dimensions, you can do that. So think of the TARDIS, right? Doctor Who, I hope that most of you are familiar with Doctor Who. He travels around in this blue box, which is stuck in this particular mode. It's a lot bigger on the inside than on the outside. So essentially what the Time Lords have done, they've taken space from over there and put it over here, right? So there's a lot of space over there, and they've just put it here, and it looks like there's a lot more space inside. So if you have a higher dimensional physics, you can take something and move it around the spatial dimensions into somewhere else. It's like taking a shortcut, right? It's like a wormhole in our space. Instead of traveling 50 billion light years, you just open a wormhole here and open a wormhole there and traverse the 50 billion light years in a matter of minutes, for instance, theoretically. So, and these things kept happening to these guys, these scientists, and they were so frustrated in the end they gave up. And people, in fact, were hurt as well. This was serious stuff. And I do urge you to look at the Skinwalker Ranch
I'll paste it.
webpage. Yeah, definitely. So,
you've done that already.
Yeah, and these black dogs appeared as well. And these were large black dogs, threatening as well, and they disappeared. Hominids were seen and disappeared. Now, why is it called the Skinwalker Ranch? Now, the Skinwalker is what we would probably call a lycanthrope or a shapeshifter of the North American Indian mythology. And the North American Indians have always associated that particular area with the appearance of these skinwalkers, which they believed lived there, that appeared and disappeared at will. They could change their shape, all kinds of things. And I here postulate this. This is what I'm saying to you guys. I think that there may be a bridge, a link, some kind of
gateway.
Gateway, yes. It's not a wormhole. Wormhole only exists within universes, not between universes. A gateway, between universes potentially, right? Between dimensions, and it's clear that something is on the other side, or something is in a high dimensional state that we can't quite understand. It's like, an ant doesn't understand the nature of the wood it's being squashed by, right? It just doesn't.
I love that analogy.
And I think, I'm not saying we're ants, what I'm saying to you is we are somewhat limited and we have to expand our horizons. Okay, so key points here to take away though, the phenomenon was impossible to study empirically. Okay, even though they had all the science equipment, it was an incredible setup. Okay, there's a UFO link, there's a link to large black dogs, large black cats, other hominids, and impossible physical occurrences happened, like the bull in the tiny shed. Okay, so where are other locations where you could find these kind of phenomena? Well,
can I throw something up for a second?
Throw it, my friend.
All right. What about ley lines?
Fantastic point.
Because I've seen a couple of examples where there's, I think, 15 circles drawn around the Earth, which are all perfectly straight. They're just circles like the cross sections, but the line representative of the cross section around the outside of the Earth, perfectly straight. And they all intersect each other in such a way that you'll find clusters where they all join together in equal spaces around the Earth. And one of those, from what I understand, passes through the Skinwalker Ranch.
That's right. Now, quickly explain what ley lines are, though. I mean, not everybody might be familiar with the ley line concept.
Oh, me? All right. I'm happy to that. No, it's fine. And it wasn't really something we discovered. As soon as we put satellites in space, we noticed that there was irregularities with the magnetic field. That's one. Number two, the ancient civilizations seem to know more about this than we give them credit for. Right. For instance, I'm going to get the things that are on the same ley line a little wrong here, but please I'll post a link after the show and you'll understand that, in fact, one of the things that they did was they drew a line through the pyramids at Giza. Mm-hmm. It went through there, through another site.
Is it a 23rd parallel?
I don't know. This one was an angular one. One of the many. But it went through Easter Island, through the Philippines, round the other side of the planet, and up and back, and it went through a number of other ancient sites. Now, they weren't 1 kilometer to the left of the line, roughly averaged out. They were exactly through the heart of these things. Another one were the Viking mounds. If you draw a line directly through those Viking mounds of every one of the continents that they had conquered, they go directly through the center of each one, and in fact they're lined up in a perfect alignment. And that circle goes around the Earth, and once again it intersects a lot of other natural sites which man had decided to place a building upon.
Correct.
Now, from a ley line thing, I'll be really quickly, because I know we've got a lot to cover in the next 36 minutes, is that it appears as though these energy points, if you have two triangles in your hand, and two pyramids in your hand, and they're square-based pyramids, and you point the tips towards each other, so one's above the other, you're holding one above the other, and one of them could magically, like a computer graphic representation, push them into each other so the points touched your palms from one to the other. So they were two intersecting pyramids, one pushed through the other in your hands, and then you put that inside of a sphere like the Earth. Where those corners touch the outside skin of the Earth is where we find, with these 15 circles, we get exactly the same diagram of how they all join together. I'll post something, it'll make a lot more sense, but that's the best way I can describe it to you. Each one of these, we're talking, like Meki's putting into right now. So Stonehenge, Bermuda Triangle, all of these things are on ley lines, and these ley lines, and even there's monoliths. We've got the ones in France as well, and in England. It's just extraordinary. Now, looking at the map of the Earth and seeing these things on there, you wouldn't have got it, but once you paste it all over the top, it completely makes sense. And even Easter Island. Now, that wasn't even discovered, right, until Cook, 200 years ago. Well, it wasn't discovered by us. But certainly it was there. It was discovered by the people who used to live on it, let's put it that way. And the South America.
Yeah, it's such a Eurocentric.
You know, I like to make a joke. If I don't make it funny, it's hard to remember. So one of those most important things here is to just understand that ley lines do exist because we've drawn them out and they match a pattern, and the pattern is in fact something that makes sense. Hey, Lombi! Welcome back to the real world. You've obviously got your internet back on. Well done, buddy. All right, I've been missing you all week, man. All right, so look, I'm going to hand it back to Meki to cover off what appears to be Hovey and Tones's view of the future. They know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, no, Hovey and Tones got it in one. That was very interesting. No, but you're right, Dave, though. And it's important to remember the ley lines. I'm just going to quickly say something about that. These ancient sites all have ley line connections. Stonehenge, the pyramids, Salisbury Plain, yeah, that's right. Salisbury, that's it. And a whole bunch of other places as well. Now, these ley lines represent an energy grid, okay? It's an energy that the ancients seem to have been able to tap into. And they may very well have used it for interdimensional and even time travel, potentially. Atlantis was meant to have been destroyed by the misuse of such energies. But other locations where you might find this is the Bermuda Triangle, as well as the China Sea Devil's Triangle we've spoken about, where interdimensional travel may very well be in existence. If it's not a time rift, it might be an interdimensional gateway that is swallowing up ships, planes, and whatnot. It is certainly worth looking at these areas. And now, I don't know why, but both areas have been neglected in the news, and nobody really talks about them anymore. And I find this amazing, because it certainly hasn't been resolved, the mystery at least. So there is certainly a lot there that we don't understand or have forgotten, in fact. The Chinese, interestingly, have retained a lot of that knowledge in the acupuncture and in the understanding of
Feng Shui.
Correct. The natural flow of energies and how things should be placed in buildings and houses and whatnot, right? These guys understand that, and they have retained it. And the energy get on your body, you can think of as ley lines as well, the chakras, your energy points, and the acupuncture will actually make the energy flow easier. And this is not some hocus pocus. I mean, acupuncture is used these days as legitimate remedy to chronic illnesses, all kinds of things. Right. So that's the physical evidence, or the supposed evidence that we have around interdimensional travel, places where it could happen. Again, the Skinwalker Range, certainly, Bermuda Triangle, China Sea Devil Triangle, maybe. But you know what? There's one piece of evidence which I find astonishing, and I'm not saying it is proof positive. What I'm saying though is this is a very strange book. It's a very strange manuscript we're going to talk about now. It's called the Voynich manuscript. Okay, we can trace its history for the last 600 years. It predates the printing press. It's entirely handwritten and hand-drawn. Okay, and you go, well, that's really interesting, Mickey, but it's a stinky old book. Who cares? Well, this is the thing. It is written in a language that nobody has been able to decipher yet, and a lot of people have tried to decipher it, and a lot of smart people have, and the king has owned it. And
Wow.
in the 1950s, after World War II, a cryptoanalyst, which is a decoder that did work as a cryptoanalyst during World War II, spent 20 years, 20 years in vain trying to decipher the text.
Yeah.
Now, I'm okay, great. Yeah, I've posted the link to the actual Voynich manuscript website. A lot of linguists, a lot of scientists, a lot of historical bibliographers have examined and tried to solve this mystery, and they haven't been able to. Again,
does it adhere to the syntactical?
yes. Good. Yeah, and thank you very much, Dave. It does. The analysis that has been undertaken on the text itself, measuring sentence, words, and paragraph lengths, does correspond to a naturally formed language.
Wow.
Not like an Esperanto synthetic language, but a natural language. So I guess the statistical methods that were used by linguists have proven out. So it does appear to be a natural language rather than a code or an artificial language. Now,
but with no Rosetta Stone, it's
impossible.
It's proving impossible to.
Correct. Now, the odd thing is this. All right. Now, again, you say, so what? So what? Now, the odd thing is, then I would say the same thing.
I'm not saying that at the moment. I'm going, wow, this is so cool.
Now, yeah, and in fact, there's a book that was written on the Voynich manuscript by Jerry Kennedy and Rob Churchill. It's a great book, and it's got color plates of it there as well. But the website has got color plates of the book as well, so you can
Hang
look
on,
at that.
listen to the irony. Kennedy and Churchill.
Yeah, I know. How about that? Huh? No, I hear you. But no relation. Well, sure. Well, who knows? But are you one of the main Kennedys? Well, but the thing is this. It depicts in great detail, okay? And this is important because it's hand-drawn and handwritten quite neatly. Sorry, let me rewind. I'm getting excited here. Why is this? It's extraordinary because in the days before paper became readily available, and before the printing press, which Gutenberg invented in 1452, in Germany, of course.
Yep.
Yeah. Book writing was extraordinarily difficult and laborious. Usually it would be done in monasteries or in large libraries in the ancient world, and in cultural centers like Alexandria or Rome or places like that. And there would be rooms full of monks or scholars, and they would hand copy books.
We're talking hand copy, page, word for word, letter for letter.
Including the illustrations and all kinds of things. In fact, sometimes they would overwrite existing texts because paper was so hard to come by.
Absolutely, and this is their day's photocopier.
Correct. And so first of all, okay, you had no paper, right? Very difficult to come by. Secondly, writing this whole thing was very laborious. Now, this particular book is handwritten, hand illustrated. And here the interest would probably end, because if it was an unknown language, who cares, right? I mean, someone might have just had a field day, and who knows? But the thing is this. It depicts in great detail unknown fantastical plants, unknown and fantastical creatures, including a dragon. But in a scientific kind of way. Okay, so back in the day, they had these full-page drawings of these plants and these animals with labels. So they put labels on there, and we don't know what it says, but it's clear that, you know, there's one word, two words here, and there's a paragraph underneath the drawing, for instance, and it's pretty clear that it must be describing whatever's drawn there.
Simply like if today we picked up a book from the Roman times with, what's the language? Help me?
Latin?
Yeah, in Latin. So if we picked up a Latin book, we'd be able to see exactly the same things. Book for book, dictionary for dictionary, you can see encyclopedia for encyclopedia. The way that it was presented, right?
That's it. But these plants, while they have botanical, the things that are described there, botanically speaking, are in some instances correct, in other instances not correct, or not correct the way we would perceive it, or certainly not on plants that we know. But none of these plants are known. Okay, there are also astronomical charts in there. Okay, so star charts and things like that. There are pictures of nude women in a bath. There are pictures of fallopian tubes.
Wow! So they know anatomy as well.
Well, this was the amazing thing, but it had homunculi, which is little. Back in the olden days, scientists, precursors to scientists, believed that little creatures lived inside you, little men, little women, that made everything work. So they drew these little creatures into the fallopian tube and other things as well. So it's an instructional manual, Tones, that's correct. So, but we don't know what it says. So what I'm saying to you guys is this. Could it be that, first of all, that the book itself somehow quantum shifted to this reality?
There's a good idea.
Right? So maybe, I'm not saying that's what it is. Mm-hmm. Is it possible? Yes, I think it is possible. 2, that the person that wrote the book quantum shift into this reality. And I'll tell you why I think that might be true. Because if I were to quantum shift into another universe, I would sit down, and especially if it was quite different from the one I had left behind, I would sit down and write down everything I could remember about my universe.
Absolutely, because that's the last time you're going to get a chance to do it.
Correct, and this may have happened a number of times, but maybe only a few times would an individual of sufficient education or imagination.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, if you look at the population at large, and this is not saying anything against people, it's just the bell curve again, right? Mm-hmm. Some people are really stupid, some people are really smart. That's just, when I say stupid, I mean, let's say less
intelligent.
Correct. Okay, whereas most of us fit somewhere in the middle, and we are reasonably intelligent. We can tie our own shoelaces, peel bananas, and all these things.
Luckily for us.
Yeah, it's you don't want to trip over your shoelaces too much. So
you absolutely make a great point.
Yeah, so let's say this person had shifted, right, and was distraught, and just to prove to him or herself that they're not insane, they wrote this book. Mm-hmm. Okay, just because it's quite an extensive tome, I can tell you that. So either the book itself has quantum shifted, or the person that wrote it, or of course I'm totally wrong, and it was written as a hoax by someone who had too much time on their hands, right? We can't discount that either. But we have to look at the facts here, and we have to look at the effort it would take to do it, and why would you do it? Why? It doesn't make any sense. But again, I'll leave that up to your own judgment. Do have a look at the manuscript, look at the history of it. Like I said, it goes back to, I think, 1666. It was bought by a king, I think a Prussian king from memory, for 600 ducats or something it was, right? So we have evidence of this book actually existing for this long. So it's not a recent hoax. The book itself has never been disputed to be nothing but authentic. So nobody's saying this book was made 50 years ago or 100 years ago or whatever, okay? Mm-hmm. It was actually named after a gentleman, Voynich, who was a buyer and seller of rare books. and he in modern history has rediscovered it, if you will. So that's why it was called the Voynich manuscript.
So the age of the book isn't in dispute?
No, it's not in dispute. That is one thing that is not in dispute, which is great. Okay, so, all right, so there you have it, the Voynich manuscript. And I do urge you to look at it yourself. It blew me away when I bought, some years ago, I bought the book dealing with the Voynich manuscript, and then the website came up, and it's really quite good, very scholarly, and it's got links to the actual plates, which are held in some state university, I can't remember where. But have a look at it yourself. Right, that's the Voynich manuscript. We also have, in other shows, mentioned a whole bunch of things about strange depictions on paintings and old manuscripts, like orbs, UFOs, and things like that. Things that just are objects.
Out of place.
Out of place, very much. Mm-hmm. And Dave, I don't want to go into it too much here, but again, the reason we bring it up is that, look, we're not saying that's the solution or the answer, but interdimensional travel could explain some of these things as well. Because remember this, if you come from a parallel universe, doesn't mean that the parallel universe is on the same developmental level as we are. They could be well ahead of us or well behind us, right? Technologically speaking, of course. Mm-hmm. So that's something to bear in mind.
So really what we're doing, we're citing all of the different examples in time, which may, or they fit that dimensional property. They don't quite fit here. I'm going to sound like Carl Sagan again. They don't quite fit here or there. And if they're out of place here, like I'm going to give you an example. If you're a floor warden in your workplace and you see a bag that is not attended and is not a normal place, you're going to assume straight away that it could be a bomb. I said assume and could be. So you're identifying something immediately that's out of place. Well, these things that we're bringing up, we're citing, are out of place events in our history or things that have been found. Just like the hammer in the rock. That doesn't make sense. And I'm using my Chewbacca defense from any South Park fans, right? It really doesn't make sense. So you're right, the orbs in the Madonna paintings. Absolutely. There's light shining out of what we today would absolutely confirm and identify as a silver disc.
Correct.
Shining a light down into a building, through the wall.
Yep.
Onto what looks like the baby Jesus, right? And the Madonna. So we're highlighting here not the artistic ability and creative artistic ability of the artist to depict something that wasn't real, but in those days they used their medium to portray what they knew.
And this is important, you're quite right. Abstract art as such wasn't really known. I mean, sure, people had abstract thoughts, but art was usually a direct reflection of reality.
In all the examples, it's equivalent to photographs.
Correct. So there was no Picasso back then. Right? You're right. It did play the role of a camera. You gone?
No, it's okay. So, are we going to move on?
Yeah. In fact, I'm really happy, guys, because we are covering everything that we wanted to cover, and there are a couple more points I want to make here. I don't know if any of you are science fiction readers. I certainly am, and so is Dave. We love it. One of the best accounts of how interdimensional travel and a traveler, in fact, might be affected and how it would work out for the traveler is Frederic Brown's What Mad Universe. Mm-hmm. Okay, now, if you want to see it like in a humorous way, but taking it very seriously and thinking it through to the end, what would happen to someone from back then in the 1950s to be thrown into another universe, and how would they deal with it? It's one of my favorite books. And oddly enough, there's a character in it called Mackie. No, it's true. It's true.
No way.
It is true. And when I read it, it's astonishing. It's actually an AI, what we call an AI today, mechanical
artificial intelligence.
Correct. So, and yet it's called Mackie by its inventor. Anyway, so I would urge you to read that just as a guide in case you get sucked into another universe, things to avoid and the pitfalls to look out for.
I love that. That's great advice for our interdimensional travelers.
I think it is because, you laugh, but I always used to carry, and still do to some extent, like an emergency bag in case I do get sucked into another dimension. Yeah, I know they will lock me up one day, but, it hasn't happened.
A bug-out bag, and it's got Catcher in the Rye in it, right?
Sure does. How do you know that?
It's a show about that book.
I know. Now, there's also a famous fictional account which is often mistaken for a fact. And I need to mention it because it's an Australian example.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Picnic at Hanging Rock. A lot of people believe that it's a true story and that these girls were sucked into some kind of vortex and disappeared into some kind of mythological ether. That never happened. Okay? It was set in Victoria in Australia, but Picnic at Hanging Rock, and I know people will weep and tear at and render at the sky, never happened. Okay?
You're kidding. I was still under the belief that
I know.
Based on a loosely true story about girls that went somewhere on a school holiday and one didn't come back.
Not even close. And the reason the reason we've put it here is because look, we don't just want to put things out there. We believe everything. No, That's not the point of the show at all.
True.
And this is one of the examples that I can think of that where I would just want to correct a common misperception about this story. It is entirely fictional. It never happened. There was a young man that did fall to his death at Hanging Rock,
Nice.
but that was investigated by the police, which was about 100 years ago or so, and it was resolved. There's no mystery at Hanging Rock. And with that, we have actually managed to cover most of the material that we wanted to cover and can now go into the news items, Dave.
Do you know what? That's awesome. We have done well. Look, I hope that the tinfoil hats have saved you in being able to understand what we're talking about through this.
Yeah.
It's, to be honest, we're only showing you what we've found. The evidence is there. I think it's really important to understand that if science is telling us that there's the complete possibility that it's real, here's some examples we've found in our history which tie it all together. I think it really works.
Yes, absolutely.
Look, when we talked about this as a show topic, I was, to be honest, a little skeptical because I've always, and Mickey knows this, I've always sort of dodged around the multiverse thing going not a crock.
Yeah.
But you know what? When you start to look at the evidence that's there and the examples, I can see how it works. And you know, in my examples, do you want to cover out or just do the news first and we'll do our little
No, please cover it. Let's cover our examples. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, one of the things that has started to come out in the mainstream reporting of individuals having experiences, and that's going to lead us into next week's show. One of the things is that the appearance of a UFO before an abduction is now changed somewhat to being, I was just lying in bed asleep and suddenly this thing just came out of a glow and appeared next to me in the bedroom. That to me sounds like someone coming out of phase from their dimension and into ours. It resembles it in every way, shape or form, and of our science fiction, the way we would imagine it ourselves to happen. It just appears like that. So in my experience, I had exactly the same thing in something standing in my bedroom, which I'm friendly with, I would say, but I'm not on speaking terms. I don't know who they are. They do things to me which I'm not at all entirely... I don't agree to it. I never signed anything. We didn't have a discussion. I must have missed a meeting.
You didn't get the memo? Oh, well.
I didn't get the memo even, right?
Dude.
I know. But you know what? I don't care. I don't mind it happening, at least to me, right? So that's one of the things that I've personally seen. I honestly, I was not asleep. It happened while I was awake. So one of those things that I think that, you know, Whitley Strieber, I want him on my show. I want him to tell me exactly what he saw. He saw exactly the same kind of thing too. Recently, it's a change in, I hate using the word, the paradigm. The scenario has changed. It's not this suddenly that my house filled with light and there's aliens running around, or critters as they're now being called. That to me happened. What's yours, man?
I have a number, but
can you throw one at us?
I'll throw one at you. I'll throw one at you, which has to do directly with quantum shift. The other one I will throw in some other time. Friends of mine and I went away and stayed in a hotel, and I can't remember the occasion. It may have been a wedding, may not have been, but essentially I was bunking with a friend, so we shared this room. And this was in the era of mobile phones. We all had mobile phones with us, and he put his mobile phone in one of his shoes for safekeeping. Everybody knows that the shoe is an impenetrable safekeeping place for any valuable, anytime at the beach, wherever you are. Your shoe cannot be broken by any criminal mastermind. Anyway, it wasn't a shoe, right?
Like your keys. When you go to the beach, you put your keys in your shoe, your mobile in your shoe, and no one's going to look there, right? That's right. Because
it's just too far out there. You would never look there.
Yeah.
So the thing is this. So he put his mobile in his shoe. I saw him put it in his shoe. Okay, and then we went out the room. We went back in the room for some reason a little while later, and he wanted to take his mobile phone with him. And he went to his shoe, and he goes, "Oh, it's not in my shoe." Okay, pick the other shoe up. Oh, it's not in that one either. Okay, so I called his mobile. It was ringing, but we couldn't hear his phone ring. Okay, fine. So I guess it must be somewhere, we just can't find it, and maybe the batteries run out, whatever, right?
Wait. He put it in his shoe.
Correct.
And then it was no longer there.
Then it was no longer in his shoe. But at that time, we just ticked it off to, well, obviously he mustn't have put it in his shoe, right? Because if he did, then it would be there. So it wasn't in the shoe. We called it, it wasn't in the room, in fact. So out we went again to come back a little bit later. And I said, oh, you know what, we should look for your phone again. So I called it. And, lo and behold, it was ringing. And the ringing came from his shoe. So, and I actually had examined the shoe myself as well, not just him. So maybe he was playing a trick on me. No, he wasn't, because I looked at the shoes myself.
And you walked in the room at the same time, and the shoe wasn't out of the room at any time, and no one had played with the shoe. No, no, that's exactly right. And at the time we spent out the room wasn't hours. It was a matter of 20, 30 minutes, whatever. Okay. And so housekeeping hadn't been there. Any of those things we discounted. And he's not the kind of guy that, he's actually very skeptical. He's a super skeptic. Okay. If you ever, no, he is. His theory in life is shit happens. and it is. And fair enough. And he's one of the greatest guys I know. He's a fantastic guy. If he's listening, he knows who I'm talking about. So, the thing is this. We went to the shoe, and there it was. It was in his shoe, exactly where he had put it, like toward, the top. And we took it out, and I looked at it, and he goes, I don't know. And he goes, I don't know either. And at that point, I came up with the term quantum shift. This was years ago. And I said, well, maybe it vibrated out of this reality. And I don't know why I said it, but I said it. And he goes, what? And he goes, Mickey, you're the only guy that I've ever heard come up with stuff like that. You say things I've never heard anyone else say. And I go, oh, well, thanks, Mike. That's great. But so we're friends, by the way, everyone.
That's exactly right.
Because we both do the same thing.
We certainly do. And I cannot explain what happened. Unless somebody went through a lot of trouble to make the phone disappear and came into our room and all of those things. But
while you were there, by the way.
While we were there, yeah. So that phone was there, and then it was not there, and then it was there. Similarly to the white gold powder. Now, I'm not saying that it was white gold powder, of course. What I'm saying to you is that I think at certain times, under the certain right conditions, through whatever influences, something can vibrate out of this universe and vibrate into another universe. I don't know how it works. I have only seen some of the effects. And I've personally, and I won't talk too much about it, but I've personally experienced quantum shift myself. Tiny little changes, like a walkway made out of stone plates going one way, and then the next time, or after the shift, I guess, going another way.
Wow. And
I mentioned this to people, and it goes, no, it's always been like this. I said, no, it's not. And then my wife actually confirmed it for me. No, it actually was different last time we were here.
Wow.
So, this is the thing is, most people, like I said, will just dismiss it, going, oh yeah, it's just a glitch in the Matrix. Oh, I love this movie. I make references to it. I know.
Every show we do this.
I know. Maybe we should pay royalties or something. But the thing is that it is usually small things. I mean, if it's like big things, like which happened to the woman we mentioned earlier in South America, of course it would be devastating. If it's small things, you probably don't care. Maybe your watch is now black instead of dark gray, or your favorite glass is no longer there, or something like that. I mean, who cares, right? And we just take it in our stride, because our brains, and as human beings, we're just built that way. We can just take it. You know what I mean? We just adapt. That's who we are as human beings. So that's my experience. There you go.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that one. And look, when we talked about this and I heard it for the first time, it just blew me away. Yeah. I've got it where it's not me and I'm seeing it, but actually having it, I think we've all done exactly the same thing. One of the things we spoke about during the week as well was that people always claim that they put two of the same sock into their dryer.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? And when you turn it on, there's only one of them in there.
But we all know there's a compartment at the back of the dryer that collects all those socks, right?
That's right. And people come in intermittently and open up the back of your dryer and remove all those socks. I'd always joked about, and this is funny because I think it's Tipple, the scientist who theorized that if you have a long cylinder spinning extremely fast, you can have a time machine and throw things into it, and out the other end they disappear and they're in some other time. Or dimensionally. He doesn't actually quite understand how that would work. However, you have any description of a dryer, it spins really fast. Imagine it, if it just falls into the center as it's spinning, it could disappear and go somewhere else. We always joked and laughed about this, about there being a whole planet made of socks.
And, absolutely. You know, like that island of garbage bags that's floating in the Pacific? Maybe it's similar to that, you know?
Exactly the same as that, right?
But you're right, Dave, though, because torsion seems to play a massive effect in spin, you know? Spin is just one of the fundamental constants in this universe.
Yes, and look, if things aren't spinning, they're spinning around something else.
That's it. Now, we have to quickly get through the news because they're actually related this time. Sorry, guys. We've got another 7 minutes to go. So, Dave, if you don't mind, I'm going to quickly rush through the first news item.
Rush. You get through that.
So I'm going to post the link in the chat, and this comes from National Geographic, guys. Okay, this doesn't come from Cooktown.com. So this is a real thing. The multiverse, probable, yes or no? I'm going to read out an abridged version of the article. Big as our universe may be, it may be just of many, all floating in a nearly unfathomable multiverse, scientists say. Problem is, there's been no way to test the idea. Now, though, physicists say they've devised a way to detect bruises from our cosmos's purported collision with other universes. The international team has created a new computer algorithm to hunt for such irregularities in our universe, which they say would be disc-shaped. Think of the temporary circular flattening that happens when one beach ball bumps into another. Get it? Get the picture in your mind?
Yep.
Like a bubble hitting another bubble?
I got it.
Yep, good. Because the multiverse would likely have expanded so fast that its universes would have been pulled far apart shortly after their creation, collisions would likely have occurred only during our universe's infancy. Okay? For quite a while, people have suspected there might be other bubble universes, but they thought this was completely untestable, said theoretical physicist Matthew Johnson of the Perimeter Institute. We now have a way to look for signals predicted by the theory. That we're able to test these ideas, period, is huge. And due largely to the development of the new software and improved mapping of the CMB, CMB is radiation emitted by the hot plasma that dominated the universe until about 380 years ago. Okay, so
4K.
That's correct. Johnson, a co-author of 2 recent studies, described the new algorithm to be published in future issues of the journals Physical Review Letters and Physical Review D. These are scientific papers. Okay, these are not conspiracy papers. This is cutting-edge science we're talking here. Now, the algorithm has so far found 15 interesting features. Okay, 4 of those look especially promising, but they still have to do more testing. Now, if major collisions happened and are detectable, they will have left behind something. A cooler temperature, warmer one, irregularities, so they could find them. Okay, it's a long shot, says Caltech's Carroll, but it would be such a big earth-shattering discovery that it's worth the effort. If these guys discover the multiverse, it will forever change how we view our own universe. Go and have a look at the article, guys. It was posted today, I think. Okay, it is unbelievable. We talked about multiverses and potential travel between them. We're talking here about proving potentially the multiverse theory, and that there, in fact, may be several universes, maybe an infinite number, floating right next to us in the ether.
Absolutely. Look, the next one. Let's just go to item 2, the quantum entanglement.
Yes, totally.
Future actions influence past events. Goodbye linear cause and effect. This is the thing we were talking about earlier. So entanglement is a weird state where 2 particles remain intimately connected, right? Doesn't matter how far apart they are, right? Now, I'm going to just keep going. It describes that a little bit too heavily for us for this time. Right? What we've got left. Essentially, the scientists show that future actions may influence past events, at least when it comes to the messy, mind-bending world of quantum physics. We touched on this so many times it's not funny.
That's right.
Okay, so what they've done, they've taken quantum entanglement a step further and started with 2 sets of light particles called photons, both pairs of photons entangled, and then then one photon from each pair is sent to a person named Victor. Of the other 2 particles that are left behind, one goes to Bob and the other goes to Alice. But now Victor has control over Victor has control over Alice and Bob's particles, because all particles are entangled together. If he decides to entangle the 2 photons he has, then Alice and Bob's photons, each entangled with one of Victor's, also become entangled with each other. Now, this is awesome stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
we're going to post this in because we're going to run out of time. And Victor can choose to take this action at any time, even after Bob and Alice may have measured, changed, or destroyed their photons. This is talking about, thank you very much for popping that in, the fantastic new thing that this decision to entangle two photons can be done at a much later time, said research co-author Anton Zillinger, also of the University of Vienna. They may no longer exist. Now, that is cause and effect. How can you entangle something that doesn't exist anymore? That is awesome. All right, so the link to that is in there as well. Mm-hmm. He said that Zillinger said that the technique could one day be used to communicate between super-fast quantum computers. Now, I've already mentioned that before, that two computers could be talking using quantum entanglement. We could have them in mobile phones, even. Extraordinary, the prospect there of being able to communicate over subspace.
And just on that, they've just recently built one. Sorry, but we're going to talk about...
Did they? Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
What we want to do is have you guys... We'll post the rest of what we've got in the chat. What we want you to do is come back next week. Kerry Cassidy, we've got Kerry Cassidy on from Project Camelot.
She's going to be awesome.
And we're going to get her to talk about what she thinks. She interviews all these people, and we're going to get her perspective on it. I think that is absolutely awesome.
Don't forget... 2 hours, right?
Yeah, we've got 2 hours. So next week, at the end of the show, if you can, please, we'd really appreciate that you hit the donate button on the website, freedomslips.com. Next time, when we don't run out of time, we'd like to invite callers. Hopefully, Kerry will invite us to have some callers with you guys.